Welcome to Bring Out Your Badass Self, a movement to break your negative thoughts and habits and instead focus on building each other up and encouraging fearless authenticity.
Each week, we will get vulnerable and share experiences alongside our guests and audience. Come rediscover your inner badass self.
Good morning, fellow badasses. Welcome to November 21st. We're going to be finishing up the law of attraction today. And I have some amazing panelists that are going to be joining us. We've been talking backstage, getting to know each other, and you're in for a treat. I'll say that. And so I do want to have you say hello as you are coming in and let me know that you are here. Also, I wanted to share with you a couple of different things. So this last week, I went to a conference. So the company that I work for, we go every year to a conference for the manufacturer that we represent, so Deltec, and we go to that particular conference on an annual basis, and it always falls every year on my birthday or my husband's birthday, or but we're a month of birthdays. And so on the 9th was my birthday. You can see a little bit of balloons back here. And then my husband celebrated his 50th birthday on the 17th. And so we celebrated that, had a bunch of people over that night. And then my daughter's having a birthday. She's going to be a big 1-5. So she's going to be getting her learner's permit. We're going to start driving. So we have all of that going on, and I'm going to be adding a 1 to the 5 here soon. And then my birthday, when I had it, I turned 51. So I'm the opposite of her. So I'm the 5-1. So we are full of November Scorpios, and then my daughter, a Sagittarius in this household. But say hello as you are joining us. So I have a couple people already on. Let's say hello. So I think this might be, yes, Heather. So Heather, so glad to see you. She said, hello, my fellow badasses. And then also I have, it's your mom. Good morning. Happy Friday. My favorite beautiful badass. Have an amazing show. Thank you so much. That's Miss Carmen out in California. And so great to see you this morning as well. So continue to say hello to us as you are joining us. I also did want to share with you, I had shared last week that I was going to be going in and having a follow-up. So I had a mammogram. And as many women know, a lot of times they don't always come back with colors that, flying colors saying, everything's good. So for the very first time, I had to do a follow-up, and I'm happy to report I went in for my follow-up and everything is good. And so, as they said, a lot of times it really has to do with making sure that you don't get over worried, like there's nothing you can do about it, even if something did happen. So I really just went in with a positive attitude, but also sort of releasing attachment and, resigning myself that whatever happened, happened. And I would deal with whatever that was. But I am happy to report that they said everything's good. So I just wanted to, give you guys that piece of information, really just to help you as well, that when you're faced with something that you might have as a fear or, oh my gosh, the possibilities of those types of things, just going into it with a mind of understanding that you never know what's going to happen, but just go in a way that everything will still be okay no matter what, because we're all going to go through things. And so I just wanted to give you guys that good news. We have J. Rowe coming. She said, yay, good news about your mammogram. Yes. And so thank you for that, Jen, J. Rowe. And then Kim is here. She said, woohoo. So thankful it's all good. Joel also joining us. So glad to hear the follow-up went well. Thank you so much, everyone. And then it looked like there was a couple of other messages. Heather said, my internet is not great today. Yeah, she said she's traveling. So she's going to be up with a friend who is getting a renewal vow and then just traveling for Thanksgiving. And so I'm excited. She's going to be joining us in a few weeks. And we'll be talking about the law of compensation with Heather. So I'm excited to have that. And then Kim also said good morning and happy Friday to one of my favorite beautiful badass ladies. And so I love you, Kim. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone, for your comments, and continue as we continue forward to just let us know what you think about the content today. So with that, what I would like to do is bring our panelists up. So give me just a second while I bring them up and also unmute them. And so, good morning. And so, just to give a little bit of who it is that's here today. So, I have Debbie Heiser in the middle, and I have Mike Bourgeois. So, good morning.
Morning.
Good morning.
And so I want to do an official introduction to you guys, and then maybe you can add a little bit more flavor to it and tell us a little bit more from maybe a personal perspective. And so Debbie Heiser is the chief igniter and founder of the Lit Up Life. She is a remote coaching, as a remote coaching practice she launched in May 2014. And after 25 plus years of fortune, it says 50. Is it 500? And is it 50 and 100 firms?
Well, Sprint was a 500 firm, Citibank was a 50 firm. So it's like this slash thing. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Fortune 500 companies. Yeah.
Well, now she uses neuroscience-based methods to help executives and entrepreneurs uncover their inner leader and also overcome obstacles and build bespoke roadmaps for greater income, freedom, and fulfillment. She is a dynamic, and you'll see this today, a dynamic public speaker and executive coach, and she empowers clients worldwide to reclaim control of their reality and design the life and career they truly love. And so thank you so much for joining us today, Debbie.
Thank you. It's an honor.
Yes. And we also have Mike Bourgeois. He is Vice President of Solutions Engineering at ECI Software Solutions. For those in the audience, you also know him as our favorite person that helped us for years over at the Dell Tech World. But he has moved on, and he is a hands-on leader, as you know, who builds top-notch global teams and crafts tech strategies that drive growth and delivers customer-first solutions. Mike's all about bridging sales, marketing, and product to exceed goals and keep partners thrilled. I can tell you firsthand that is true. And so thank you for joining us, Mike.
Thank you for having me.
And so I'm excited about today's topic, and we're really going to be diving in further into this final episode of the Law of Attraction. And today our conversation will be about how thoughts, beliefs, and inspired action shape our life, and also understanding that what we are attracting is also because of what we have in our beliefs and those thoughts. And so also I want to say that I don't normally do this, but one thing that I wanted to sort of do and ask is that we have a very interactive group, but one of the things that I don't ask is, can you maybe also like, share, and comment on this particular episode? One of the things that I find is helpful is when people do that, it helps others find this content that also can benefit from it. And so I would like to also ask you guys to do that if you would be so kind. All right, so let's jump in, and maybe Mike, could you start us off? I'd like to understand maybe if you could share a specific success story where you consciously attracted a particular outcome.
Yeah, a couple of years ago, one of my colleagues and friend, Mookie, he worked with me over at Dell Tech. He was a really incredible advocate for Light the Night, which is a fundraising activity for leukemia. and other blood-related diseases. And he was up in the Pacific Northwest, board member of this chapter. And it was something that was incredibly passionate. It was a passion project for him because he lost his best friend to a blood-related illness. I believe it was leukemia. And for the longest time, my former employer, Deltec, was a really strong advocate and supporter of the Light the Night movement and donating as much money as we could possibly raise for leukemia. And I always knew that Mookie was out there, someone on an island, representing this brand, representing this initiative, representing this great charitable organization, because it was something that was profound and really meaningful and impactful for him because he truly lost his best friend to this awful disease. And we were doing this thing at Deltec at the time where we were always having these competitions amongst ourselves, like which group or what part of the organization could raise the most money for Light the Night. And at the time, I had a team of about 80 people. And I said, you know what? I really want to stand behind this thing. Like, this is a great initiative. This is a great cause. And, you know, Mookie's a great friend of mine. And I said, let's go do this thing, but let's not tell him. Right. So I started to plant this seed out in the world where I went and got the CRO's blessing. I said, you know what? I'm thinking about this thing where Mookie's been on the board. He's been really a strong advocate up in the Pacific Northwest where we didn't have a lot of traction in generating a lot of fundraising out of his group. I said, I want to go ahead and fly as many people out to the Pacific Northwest and go do this walk for him. So Light the Night, actually, you all light a torch and you walk around like a park and you hold a certain different color torch based upon, are you a survivor? Are you doing it in memory of someone? Or are you just a general supporter? And for the longest time, he's been doing this somewhat on his own. He had a couple people that would help him. But I said, you know what? This is something important. This is a huge movement. Deltec is really supporting us as a company to stand behind this. Let's go surprise him. So I thought about this idea. Wouldn't it be amazing if I told him I was going to be out there and I was just going to be out there out on a whim and I was going to just try and surprise him and say, you know what? I'm going to meet up with you the night before you go do the walk. I'm out there for a different reason, but it would be great if you could come out and meet my family. We're going to be up in the air on a vacation. What he didn't know is I brought 35 of my closest colleagues with me. We rented a restaurant down on the harbor and we had this big surprise event for him where all 35 of us came out to actually do the walk with him. And all 35 people said, like this is important. This is such a unique opportunity for us to stand behind one of our colleagues. And we ended up raising $30,000. And all the other years prior to that, I think they raised $3 million. So it was just one of those things where I had this moment where I was like, I want to stand behind this kid. This is something important. And man, if we're all rooted with the positive intent to help, I wonder how many people would come along with a ride for us. We got 35 people. And when he walked into that, what he thought was where he was going to meet my family, and he saw 35 of his closest colleagues there, man, you could almost see the tears coming down his face. And you step back from that moment, you're like, man, that's cool. Like, I put this idea out into the world. Other people bought into it, and look at what we're doing. We raised 30 grand, and it was an event that every single one of those people will remember for the rest of their lives. It was cool. And that was just one of those things where, had I not manifested the idea of him walking into that room and being surprised, I don't know what we would probably done or what the outcome would have been for that year. But all 35 of us step away from that event saying yes, let's go serve other people. Let's stand behind things that people are really passionate about, and let's try and have some fun with it. Put some good into the world. It doesn't always have to be something that is arduous or painstakingly boring. We had a great time with it. We had a great weekend in Seattle, and man, Mookie will remember that for the rest of his life. So if I ever need to call on Mookie for a favor, man, he has my back, right? So when you put that good intentionality into the world, I always think it comes back tenfold for you.
100%. Such a beautiful story. I actually don't know Mookie. And so I love this story. It's really just about manifesting. You saw the vision, you saw what was going to happen. You visualized it, and then you ended up putting certain things in motion, but you can't really control all of that. You have to also let go and then just see how it is that it sparks inspiration within other people. So I love this story, and I love
Yeah.
also, it's the fact that you're also supporting, not only a colleague, but also doing something that this person will feel and remember for the rest of their life.
Yeah, and what I think was also an awesome thing is, the company stood behind what we were trying to do. Our leadership stood behind what we were trying to do. We got so enamored with like what we were doing and the surprise that we were throwing down. We all ended up getting shirts, and we branded ourselves as like Team Mookie. And man, the energy and the inertia that you put behind such a positive thing. Again, it's one of those things where I look back on my phone 3 years, 4 years, 5 years from now, and you're like, man, we did that. That was cool.
Well, it's such a great idea, or I just got to hop in here because it's such a great example of people don't remember what you do, but they remember how you made them feel. Right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Debbie, do you have a particular story that you want to share as well?
Well, it was interesting because, as your audience probably knows, you send some questions out, and I was thinking about this, and the word conscious really came to me, right? Like that was a very specific word in the question about a conscious manifestation. So I'm going to give you two quick stories.
Okay.
One, and not from a team perspective, but more in an individual perspective. So I got divorced in 2020 after 30 years of marriage. And Mike, no offense here, so please know this, but I had made the decision last year that I was open to dating and open to manifesting a male love relationship with hair. And the reason I say that is because my ex-husband was bald, and then I briefly dated a gentleman who was also bald, and I thought I physically need to like have something in front of me that is different, right? So that's what I chose. And I had not had a dog in 15 years, and on January 2nd, this guy came into my life. So I manifested a male love relationship, but it wasn't quite what I expected.
I love it.
I wasn't really specific, and you talk about in earlier episodes, right? Like be specific on what you want. And in the same realm, sometimes we know that we want something. And I think about moving to North Idaho. I come from Kansas City. I was in corporate for a long time. And that's a big jump sometimes to go from a W-2 job to then being the one earning your own income. And you just manage your money differently. But there is this subconscious manifestation too that happens. And it can happen on both of the laws of polarity. It could be things that don't serve you and things that do serve you. So I wanted to move to North Idaho, as did my husband at the time. And I was interviewing first of all, I started to get my master's at Gonzaga. I had no idea where Gonzaga was. So I had no idea it was 90 minutes from the place I ended up moving to, and got my master's there online. But I came into North Idaho. My best friend from my undergraduate lived here, and I was interviewing with a company called Coldwater Creek. I don't know if you remember them. It was a women's clothing store. They were based out of Sandpoint, Idaho. And I got a call on my third interview before I came in that they were struggling and having financial problems. So they were in a hiring freeze. And I was so upset. Right. And so I knew consciously that I wanted to find a job up here and move to North Idaho, whether it be here. And at that time, remote work wasn't quite as popular. Right. That was about 10 years ago. And so I went to a dinner party that night that my best friend coordinated, and a woman who I had known sat next to me, and she was looking for someone to come run her business in Idaho with her daughter and her sister who were based in California. And needless to say, subconsciously then, because so many times what I'm trying to manifest, and I know we're going to talk about this later, I have a vision of what that looks like. It's like the drowning man that's at the pearly gates saying, "Why didn't you save me?" Because he thought the Coast Guard was saving him, when then all of these other things appeared, right? So I find I have to be open to how that comes in. Isn't necessarily always the way I'm tied to the outcome, right? So then she offered me a job as a CFO. I laughed at her. I said, just because I worked at Citibank doesn't mean I know finance. I haven't balanced my checkbook since high school. And she goes, no, I want you to be a CFO. So I literally came into a company knowing nothing about payroll, nothing about finance when it came to that. I had to self-learn everything. And the two things I was great at was sales and recruiting. Somebody else did. Right. So it was divine intervention too with that. But so to me, there's conscious manifestation and subconscious manifestation, and really being open to, you talked about surrender earlier, open to how that comes to you.
Yeah. I love that. So apparently I manifested for you another person with no hair, a bald person, on this show for
I
you.
know. And I know I was like, man, should I say something backstage before we start? But I thought, no,
No, I love it.
funny story, right? Yeah.
Well,
So
let the record show I didn't manifest this. Like sometimes, you choose things. Sometimes they choose you. Like I didn't choose this.
Well,
Like
and
if I had a
like
hair.
that then, right? Because I was married to one for 30 years and then dated another one afterwards. But yeah.
I love your bald head, Mike. So
I don't know. There's a lot of people in my life right now who know me any other way. Honestly,
I know. I
Yeah.
know.
that's who I am.
I love this story. One, because it is interesting that sometimes when we manifest things, when we aren't specific, we get what it is we're asking for. It just happens to be maybe a little bit different than we had intended or planned because one, we're not specific. But I love that you pointed out, that you caught the consciously, and that also subconsciously sometimes when we aren't in alignment with like our heart, like in what it is that we're wanting, like those two things, like the subconscious and the conscious, need to be in alignment as well. Otherwise we're in also sending out mixed signals as well. So that's why we really have to feel it as well when we're manifesting. And I know we'll talk about this a little bit more as to some of the things that sort of go wrong when we're manifesting as well.
And Sarah, too, just quickly on that, one of the things that I've realized, and it helps me kind of settle, and you talk about grounded energy in one of your previous podcasts, and feel really grounded, is that I truly believe universe, God, whatever it is that you like believe. If you believe in universal law, you believe that the universe is always for you. So me getting a dog was what I needed to open my heart, right? To then be ready to date, right? So if we believe the universe is always for us, then whatever we are manifesting, there is either a learning opportunity in that or a blessing in that, right? Yeah.
100%. I love that. We have another individual, Molly, that's joined us. I believe this might be your first time. So hello to you joining from YouTube. We have Lisa joining us as well. And so good morning, beautiful badasses. And so Lisa, guess what? I found out I'm in perimenopause. So Lisa focuses on menopause and helping women, as well as talking about andropause with men. She was previously on. So thank you, Lisa, for joining us today. And so I'm loving each of these stories they just sort of represent different aspects. So, for someone else looking at for us, and as we're manifesting different things. And I wanted to just maybe dive in a little bit more as to the thoughts and beliefs that maybe supported your ability to manifest what you want. And then also talk about like which ones sometimes when you're manifesting, what has held you back from being able to manifest as well. Debbie, do you want to start us off?
So much there. That could be an entire show in and of itself, right? So first of all, part of what I love about you, Sarah, is that you embrace universal law. And to me, universal law really is the biggest piece that from a belief perspective, the universal law of vibration, which you talk about, and making sure that you're vibrating. So those, like understanding that and believing those, and sometimes it's really easy to believe that in universal law for the small things, right? But then when we're tested a little bit, because it's a bigger thing, I always talk about, there's a scene in one of the Raiders of the Lost Ark where Harrison Ford is wanting that thing that's across the huge crevice, right? And there's nothing there for him to get to that other side. And so trusting yourself, and we are taught so much, like I really seriously say we live in a matrix, right? Because we're conditioned with a lot of messages. And ultimately that message is don't trust, right? Like we learn not to trust ourselves, even to the point where when my son wants to go to Applebee's every time when we would go in high school, instead of just saying where I wanted to go, I'd be like, are you sure? Right? Which then degrades his trust in himself. So we learn that. And what Harrison Ford does is he takes that first step and all of a sudden, whoop, the stone appears, right? That he's standing on. Then he takes the next step. So for me, it's about faith that I don't have to know the 100 or 1,000 steps to get to that thing or that feeling that I want. I just need to start, right? And trust that when I take that first step, that first inspired action, the next inspired action will appear. But I have to be open to hearing that too, right? The resistance comes in that dichotomy of tension when I'm not open to doing it a slightly different way. So I think there's faith, there's trust, there's understanding universal law. And I go back to that. If I believe, and I do wholeheartedly, that the universe is always for me, I also have to believe it's for you and for Mike, and it's for my kid, it's for everybody else, right?
Yep.
The things that are happening, I don't have to control it, because control is an illusion. And ask me how I know. I used to be involved in Al-Anon, and they talked about everything I used to be involved in had claw marks all over it, right? As you try to control and hang on to things.
Yeah.
And so I think a big piece of that too is surrender. And that's not always easy. That surrender and letting go and letting it, like, saying what you want. And I have a friend that always says, give your waiter or waitress the order that you want, and then step back and let it happen. Right. So there's a whole lot of beliefs and a whole lot of things. And I think there's neuroscience that comes in it, because a belief is tied to your identity. And many times we have to kind of unravel that part, which is what gets in the way sometimes for people. But yeah, so there's so much I could go on with that, but that's all I'm going to say about that one.
No, one, I love the visual of the stone coming up and you're trusting and taking that step, but you still don't see any other stones ahead. And so what I love is what I tend to find is that people that are wanting to manifest something, it's that first step. It's taking that, like, believing like this is going to happen. I'm just going to take this first step and see where it leads me. I know whenever I do it and I'll do it. And then sometimes, like, I'll get mixed messages. It's like here and here. And I'm like, okay, well, like, which way are you actually wanting me to go? It's like, okay, well, I guess I'm going, I'm going to go this way, because this is where, I'm getting least resistance. Or once I get then resistance, it's like, okay, were you also wanting me to go this way? So sometimes it's following that intuition and listening to the things that are pushing back, because it really is about flow. Like, when it's meant to be, it will flow and it will happen. The stones will just arise and start happening.
Yeah. And I think it's really important, Sarah, because so many times, like, what I always say is whenever there's confusion or chaos, there's an untruth. Because you look at nature, the universe is very uniform, right? It's very organized. And whenever we're confused, there is an untruth somewhere that leads to a belief, right? Or an identity piece. And so anytime that happens, I always tell people, I don't care if it's me as a coach or someone else, but find somebody in your life that can help you unwind what that untruth is, because then it becomes very clear which way to go. And resistance sometimes is a sneaky little shit. Oh, I didn't ask. I'm sorry. Is it okay? Okay.
Oh yeah. We have the word ass in our podcast.
Oh, yeah. Good call. Right. But they're little sneaky little suckers, right? Because what happens is resistance sometimes can be us resisting because it feels uncomfortable. And so that's why I think it's so important to dig in and uncover what that untruth is, so that then the road becomes much clearer and you can be more in flow. And sometimes it feels uncomfortable because we're not used to being in flow. I was a fix-it girl in corporate. So if there wasn't a problem, guess who created one so that it gets solved, right?
Yeah, I love that.
Yes, Sarah, I just want to jump on here.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, as we unpack this conversation, I'm learning a lot from you, Debbie. So this is great. I feel like I'm also part of the audience here. But I want to double click on something that you said around inspired action, and then really something that you said, Sarah, around, like, sometimes that first step, you don't take it. Sometimes that first step is somewhat forced upon you. And I got a little bit of a story, but a little over a year ago, I got in a really bad mountain biking accident. I broke 8 ribs, broke my shoulder blade, collapsed a lung. I was in the ICU for like 5 days. I had road rash up and down the right side of my body for a month, still have the scars. And coming out of that entire, and when I actually had that accident, I truly passed out into a ditch. My 15-year-old son thought I was dying, had to call 911. And I remember what that kind of did to me. Like, that whole entire episode said, you know what, Mike, no one's going to sign you up and be a Red Bull rider next week, right? So, like, maybe find your place in the world where you're not going to be this amazing mountain biker, but kind of do it with a little bit more understanding about like where you are and how you are. And what it really kicked off for me is was somewhat of a health journey for me. And as I went through that health journey, I said, you know what, I don't want to ever really have to put my son into the situation where, you know, he's worried about my well-being. Right. So I started thinking about like, how can I get stronger? How can I get more fit? How can I maybe withstand some of the beatings that I'm putting on this 50-year-old body so I can continue to do the things that I love to do with my son? So like this whole entire, like this accident that I went through kicked off this health journey for me. And one of the things that really helped me as I went through this health journey, really thinking about how do I manifest a better, healthier version of myself, was really two things. One, I needed to be able to set measurable goals for myself, right? So I did this thing. I read this book called Outlive. A friend of mine turned me on to the book, and Outlive has like this, like affiliation to this health app called Function Health. So I signed up for this whole thing called Function Health, and it's 100 blood tests about like all the different markers that you could ever have in your world as to whether or not you're going to be susceptible to really to the four things that they call the four horsemen, the thing that killed most people over 50 years old, right? So I really took this like very calculated and I would say inspired journey on how this whole structure was doing and how I was actually plotting myself as I went on this health journey, how I was improving along the way. Because like, as you manifest things, there's not like an end date. It's not like Christmas Day. It doesn't just show up. Like you work at the things over time. So for me to stay positive and to stay motivated to constantly manifest this better health journey, it was super critical for me to understand the things I was doing was paying off. And that's what Function Health did for me. I was able to track my heart rate. I was able to track my blood sugar. I was tracking all these things. And over time, as I was taking these tests, the things I was doing on this health journey, because I almost died in front of my son, was measurable. And I stayed in the fight. And I continued to go on really the best health journey I've ever been on in my life. But the other thing that I was really cognizant of to make sure that I stayed on the path and I wanted to manifest a better version of myself from a health perspective was I needed to go ahead and surround myself by the right community. Mm-hmm. So I always thought like, find the people that are supportive of your journey. And one of the things that I found was as I went to the gym, like you're surrounded by all the people who are on a similar journey. And I was going there 6 days a week. So it was great to see the same exact people all the time. Mm-hmm. And every single time, like I would get off a machine and someone else would do the machine after me, I was always staying very conscientious of like, are they putting the pin above where I was or where are they putting the pin below where I was? So like competitively, I had to stay in it too, that like all these other people who are doing similar things around their journey to better health were also somewhat like competitors to me, but not in a negative way, not an adversarial way. So one of the things that like kept me on that journey to manifest the best version of myself was measure, like have a way to understand, are you achieving the goal? Because getting to some place isn't a day on the calendar that you can circle. It's a journey, and it might take 3 years, it might take 5 years, but stay on the journey. And the way I stayed on that journey was constantly being able to see that, hey, you are making achievements and you're surrounding yourself by people who are in the fight with you.
Yeah, Sarah, if you don't mind, I got to jump in here because Mike, one of the things that just over the last year that I've really started to dig into, and if many of you are corporate, I'm sorry, I'm going to offend you right now. I'm just going to tell you, I hate SMART goals, right? Because what happens is if you have a goal to lose something or quit something, that's not a goal, that's a task. And I don't care what you say, those tasks a lot of times have very short-lived vibration. Right. And we all know the law of attraction is about vibration and you attract like, right. That's about that even in a previous episode. And so when you look at that, it's really about having a juicy goal. And your juicy goal is you didn't want to put your son in that situation again, right? You wanted to be the healthiest you could be so that he didn't have those feelings and that stuff come up for him when that was there. I had the same thing happen where I was even nervous about not saying that my juicy goal was to be active when my grandsons were older, right? That they're 4 and 1, because I was thinking, okay, well, my juicy goal really doesn't have anything to do with them. It's a byproduct, but I downhill ski, and up here you get a free pass when you turn 80. So I want to be able to ski when I'm 80, not just go up for coffee, but I want the free pass. I know what that feels like. And that's piece too is like feeling what that big juicy goal is. When you have a feeling for that, that's
Yep.
how beliefs are created. That's how you vibrate to then be able to manifest and attract what you want in your life. Because, you know, I've put on and lost the same 40 pounds my entire friggin' life, right? But until I decided I wanted to ski and be able to ski, that changed the behavior then of what I wanted to do. And I was nervous about sharing that people were going to judge me, that being around with my grandchildren wasn't more important. It is more important, but I don't know what that feels like to be 80 and to be able to like get up and down off the ground and play with them. I know what it feels like to go down that ski mountain, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's really important that when you look at goals, I mean, I get for corporate, like, but having measures are important to see the progress and not typical measures. You know, I tell people the scale is only the pull to gravity to the earth, right? Like have other measures that you have with that. And honestly, that's why I got my dog. I read that book and I was looking up longevity and it talked about single people having dogs and he popped up. Anyway, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to get a little vulnerable here. So here recently, I so I meet with a depth psychologist on a every other week basis. And when it comes to like manifesting things from my career or manifesting my life with my family and, you know, with my daughter and, you know, like I truly believe I manifested my daughter because she's, you know, exactly like what I imagined whenever I thought about a daughter, you know, just all those things, my husband, just all of those types of things. But recently I'm like, okay, so one of the things that I also feel like I have been manifesting is I am a fuller woman. And I've also been wanting to get more healthy. And I don't necessarily want to lose weight, although I would love to be able to do that as well. But it's more about like the ability to not feel out of breath whenever I'm going up the stairs. It's being able to do things easier when, you know, just honestly getting on a plane and, you know, getting in that seat buckle and saying, is this seat buckle actually, am I going to have to get an extender? You know, things like that. And so it's those types of things that, you know, I started thinking about like what might be holding me back. And whenever I really started to think about it, it was the fact that my persona, my identity is I am confident, I am a fuller woman, and anybody can be confident, you know, look at me. That also, you know, holds me back in being able to be something else. And so I'm sharing this just to be able to let people know that sometimes the intent that you have might be full of purpose and might be great. And it also can be the thing that's limiting and holding you back as well. And so I've started to like really come into like understanding a little bit more about my beliefs and some of the thoughts and like, okay, well, how can I view this differently? But it was exactly what you said. It's not about like, oh, I'm this weight, I want to be this weight. It's about feeling inspired in the things that I'm going to do as far as like working out. Like I have to feel inspired. Like I love dancing. I like aquatics, you know, so I'm waiting for them to get the aquatics going so I can do like aquatic aerobics and things like that. Like I love that type of stuff. I got to have some fun. And honestly, I could see myself even like leading the class, like, come on, ladies, you know, let's go, you know, that type of thing. But, you know, it's those types of things that sometimes when we manifest, we have to understand deep seated beliefs that might be holding us back. And so I just wanted to share that and get vulnerable and let people know, you know, things that they may not think about in the things that they really want in life.
Yeah, Sarah, jumping in on that too, so many times those messages are in our subconscious, right? Because our subconscious can't deflect messages. So even our conscious brain, when we deflect messages, we still, those come into our subconscious brain and we process those, right? And it can be really insidious. And I think it's so important. You were talking about earlier, Mike, like surrounding yourself with people because, like even when I went to go start this business, I couldn't understand why I kept hitting this wall about doing it full time. I mean, I felt called to do this. And my coach helped me see that I had a double bind and a loyalty pact with my mom. She passed away
Mm,
actually at the age I am right now of breast cancer. And she swore it was the stress of owning her own business.
mm,
Right. And so in my subconscious brain, if I owned my own business, I was going to die. Right. And that's a scary thing. And so our brain is wired to keep us alive. And so having someone else help me see that and uncover that, then I was able to let go of that and realize too that if I did that, that was her story, not mine. And it also meant I wasn't making her wrong.
mm,
We have loyalty pacts with spouses, partners, parents, anybody that's important to us, that if we do something different than what their beliefs are, then we're saying they're wrong. Right. So many times that, like, your thought too around like being vulnerable with that, it's sometimes we don't see it, we don't understand. And if you
mhm,
feel like you're hitting a wall, find someone that can again find that untruth that's in your
mhm.
subconscious. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing
I
that
I
story.
love that. The other thing that as I was talking with her, that whenever I really thought about like what I hate is people that will like congratulate people for like great job and losing all the weight, and I'm like, you're still the same person. Like for me, like if I lose weight, I don't want people congratulating me. I want people congratulating me on getting healthy, not on losing the fucking weight.
Yeah.
Like so it's also one of those things that holds me back as well. Like I don't, whenever I think about those types of things, and so understanding some of those deep seated feelings or things that you don't know, I think that that's a really good suggestion, and people really digging deeper and understanding some of the things that might be holding them back, that they don't really understand until they get to their unconscious, their subconscious.
Yeah, and one last little thing here, like I look at that too, because what I find too, though, is we try to do all this on our own. Right. And then when we screw something up, our vibration lowers because we start to go into guilt and shame, beat ourselves up, which is
Mm,
the opposite of what we want to attract.
yeah.
Right. So finding community that then you can borrow beliefs sometimes from other people. Right. You can share those things, and I think self-sabotage is bullshit. I'm just going to say it, because we're all smart, brilliant people. If we knew what was getting in our way, we'd do something about it.
Mm-hmm.
And many times, if you find yourself up against that wall, it's neuroscience. And if we can step back and say, what would it take to get to here and not compress our identity into something, that helps us move forward easier.
Yeah. Mike, so as we're talking about things that have happened, that where we're trying to manifest and we've failed. Have you ever had something where you were trying to manifest something, but you failed, but you learned something from it?
Again, for me, like, I don't think manifestation has a defined timeline. Like, I'll give you an example. Right now, I'm in the process of trying to build, like, corporate America is great for all the things that corporate America is great at, but I don't want to be doing it for the rest of my life. In fact, I want to go ahead and plan an exit strategy of 5 years from now. I want to be done, and I want to really get into creating a business where I have 10 rental properties and all of them are curated, unique Airbnb experiences, right? That's my goal. That's the thing I'm manifesting right now. I'm in the process of securing as many rental properties as I can. And as I'm going on this journey, one just recently fell through for me. And as I was going through that entire episode, like, it was, if a real estate deal falls apart, you lose some money, you lose some time, you lose the opportunity of what that was going to present to you.
Yeah.
And the way that I'm looking at that is like, yeah, sure, I might have lost some time, but man, I learned a lot of lessons as to what not to do the next time I go ahead and try and secure a rental property on my own. I was trying to do it without an agent. I was trying to do it with a lawyer that I trusted. I was trying to do it with a banker that I trusted. And it just didn't work out. But me, the banker, and the lawyer that I was using have all learned a valuable lesson as to how do we go do this the right way the next time. So like the thousands of dollars that I lost in that entire process of trying to like get this property to manifest that goal, like that was an investment in me. I'm not going to make that mistake again. You make that mistake once, right? So as I go on this journey, it's one of those things where yeah, there's going to be some loss along the way, but that's not the end. You're just learning there.
Mm.
And there's this mentality that exists inside of my family that like any single time, like you're finding something that you're not achieving the right way, you're not doing the right thing. I always talk about it with my kids. Like I always have this mantra that I said, hey, you won the lottery. Like the fact that your mother is from the Arctic Circle of Sweden and I grew up north of Boston and you exist on this world right now, like you won the lottery, right? So as we kind of walk through all the things that get in our way of achieving our goal or doing the thing, my son's a huge downhill mountain biker. He wants to go ride Red Bull Rampage one day, and every single day he's trying to push himself to be bigger and go stronger and go harder and do crazier things. And when he doesn't do it, he beats himself up on it. And I'm like, dude, if that's your goal, cool, continue to manifest that. But like, just remember, like, just because you don't achieve it today doesn't mean you won't achieve it tomorrow. Sometimes you have to visualize yourself doing these things. Sometimes you have to step away from that jump, being afraid that you didn't hit it, only to go ahead and build up the nerve to hit it the next time we're up there, right? So for me, it's not a linear journey. It kind of goes like this, and it has no defined timeline. Mm-hmm. So we always like kind of ground ourselves and root ourselves when things go bad or things don't go the way we want. Just step back and say, man, you won the lottery. Like you're alive. You're in a house with 2 loving parents. You have running water in your house. Like you won the lottery still. Go do that thing the next time. Don't beat yourself up over it.
Yeah, it's funny. I had a colleague that told me, I don't understand how you look at things as an opportunity or, like every time we would have a client that would be upset at us, I was like, oh, that's just an opportunity. Like the client wouldn't be upset with us and tell us that they're upset at us if they didn't want us to fix, whatever the situation is. That's just an opportunity to have a closer relationship and hear the person out and see how it is that you can help them. And, with anything that I've been given, I look at it, I'm like, oh, okay, what's the lesson here? Or, what's the opportunity out of this? But it was funny to hear them say, like, I don't understand that mindset. And they're also risk adverse
Sure.
as well. And, and I think in order to sometimes manifest things, you have to be okay with risk as well, like going for stuff that people tell you you're not going to be able to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, it's funny because what you're talking about is really this attitude of gratitude, right? Because depression and anxiety cannot exist at the same time when you're in gratitude. They just don't. They can't exist. So when you're looking at things as opportunities, that's gratitude. Like, thank you for that happening, because that leads me to believe, I just had this happen. I have a photographer that travels with me on these mastermind trips, and she kind of was, I don't care if people drink, but like she's kind of on the sauce a little bit when she's working for me. And I'm like, whoa. And so I thought, oh, thank you. Because this is an opportunity for me to set expectations with team members when we go to these events that they're kind of working, right? So it's okay to have a glass of wine, but let's not overindulge when you're working. I don't care, right? Like if you're not, but it then led me to say, okay, what do I need to change? Because this is an example of an opportunity to do something differently with it. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. Just to build on that, Debbie, I mean, one of the things that I always kind of bring back, like the whole notion of gratitude and journaling and all that stuff, I really subscribe to that a lot. But one of the things that I think has helped me, one of my friends said to me just recently in preparation of this podcast, like, Mike, I can't wait to see what you say here, because you kind of carry yourself through every single day with this confidence that is rarely dulled, right? And one of the things that I always come back to is to like, how do I carry myself with that confidence and that vision to manifest the things that I want? I did a lot of volunteer work, and I continue to do a lot of volunteer work. And in fact, I was a wish granter for Make-A-Wish for many, many years. And like when you go ahead and all of a sudden send a kid who's 7 years old who was born with AIDS to Disney World for his first time, knowing he may not live to see 8, man, you put a lot of things in perspective really, really fast. Like, so if you want to understand gratitude and you want to understand like how lucky you are, go help someone who's less fortunate than you. And man, it puts your whole world into perspective.
I love that. We're going to be talking about the law of compensation next month, which this really goes into as well. And really, a lot of the universal laws play upon what you talked about in when you give freely, when you give of your heart, things will come back to you. And I think that that's the biggest thing. And that's also the lesson. Like sometimes I also wanted to give, but my heart wasn't in it. And I think that it's important that you also really resonate and listen to what it is. But I think that, giving to other people, we get it, not only, back in kind, but, more so than how we gave.
Sure.
I do want to pull up a couple of comments. So Heather said, yes, thank you. Smart goals are BS. And then yes, without understanding the why, goals are just words. I do think, the resonating or having the feeling of, and that's really what Mike was talking about is, yes, have goals, yes, have, measure them, but also understand the why of, and is this rooted within your heart and what it is that you're really wanting in life, and understanding the unconscious, the subconscious as well.
And Sarah, kind of a hack here. It's really important to embody it, right? Like I do a meditation with a lot of my people at events about imagining yourself on a big screen and that future version of yourself, which really is here now, and embodying that, because the body keeps the score, right? So the body knows how that feels. So if you want to tap into that, then you just remember what that felt like, and your body will automatically start to move into that.
Yeah. And I'll be curious what you guys think about this, but one of the things I was introduced to is that if you're having trouble connecting to it from a heart perspective, or you're really not believing it, one of the things that I've learned is to do an ask formation. Like, oh, I wonder why it is that I have XYZ. So you're like asking yourself a question, but then it's inviting yourself to feel what it is that feels like, because sometimes we have a hard time because we have these limiting beliefs that we don't really believe like we deserve certain things. So by starting the process through an ask formation, you can then start to feel what it is that might feel like.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then we have Nicole joining us as well. She says, good morning. Interesting share. My mom, I feel, worked herself to illness and death because of her business. And, there was another comment that she had here. Now this first year is mine. I've been thinking I'm following in her footsteps. She died at 61 and I'm 49, and it makes me wonder if I too will die young.
Sarah, can I address this briefly?
Yes.
Yeah, Nicole, one of the things that I would say is the mind is powerful, right? And Sarah, you were talking about how words are matter to us. And I have a friend that says words are matter, right? Words are energy. And so our brains are like our mind, really, the brain dies when we die, but the mind is the essence of who we are, and we create that reality. So feel free to reach out. I'm happy to talk you through this, because don't manifest that, right? Like, but that's easy to say on this side. And I've been through that. So feel free to reach out to me and I'm happy to chat with you more about that. But, like there is always that wonder, but that's her story, not yours. I just want to throw that out there.
Yeah, I love that. My husband said, started saying this as well. And I was like, Jay, I was like, this has been several years ago that he was like, well, his father died at 72 and, my father died at at this age. And he was like, I'll probably last like a couple of years later, like 74. And I said, well, if you say that and you believe that, that's exactly what's going to happen. And I was like, is that what you want? Like, let's talk about this. Is this really what you're wanting? Because if you say that, that's exactly what's going to happen. And he's like, oh, like, didn't connect the two. And I was like, no.
Yeah. And it's interesting because what he went through, and then also what Nicole is talking about, that's kind of that subconscious too, right?
Yes.
That sometimes can hold us back and frustrate us and scare us, and then ultimately make us risk averse to jumping into something. So yeah.
All right. I want to talk a little bit about when we're manifesting. Have you ever seen a difference between like forcing a desire versus just letting it unfold? Who wants to start on this one?
I'm going to ask Debbie to start. I'm going to draw some inspiration to what I'm going to learn from her.
Awesome.
Yeah, there's this little thing that I always joke that you can sit in the back seat of an Uber and trust that the Uber driver is going to get you there. Although as a woman, sometimes I have my map open, especially if it's at night, right, to make sure we're heading in the right direction. But I don't have to take the steering wheel. And that's much easier said than done. But it's really, wow, there's so much that can happen here, right? Like it's really about letting go.
Mm.
And the letting go, meaning there's this joke, and I was mentioning this backstage about someone drowning and getting to the pearly gates and saying, "Why didn't you save me?" And, it's like, okay, wait a minute. I sent the surfboard, I sent the raft, I sent the logs for you to grab onto. And this person had in their mind that the Coast Guard was going to save them, right? So every day, Tasha Silver is somebody that I love to listen to her books, and she wrote a book called It's Not Your Money. And so like every day it's this prayer that I say about just being open to what's coming to me in whatever way it's coming, right? Like abundance means so many different things. And so yes, I can be specific that I want cash currency, but it's then about opening up to however that may come. But then also I help that out. I have it's called the AO scanner that I do every morning on myself, but I also send frequencies to my bank accounts on wealth and abundance frequencies, right? And so there's so many different things, but for me, it's really about letting go, because when I try to control it messes it up, right? You look at nature as an example. My son used to be in the fish industry, and everywhere you go, the lake I live on, when they introduce lake trout into it, well, then all of a sudden it creates all these issues because the way the ecosystem was set up, it wasn't open to having lake trout. So now it's killing the native fish. So now they're having to manage the lake trout that they put into so anytime man gets in the way of nature, right? Same thing. Anytime I try to get in the way of allowing what's coming to be here and come in, I tend to, when I say mess it up, it's not really a mess up because then I learn from it. But the way that I found to be in flow is whenever you hang on to something really tight, like if I had a bird in my hand, what would I do to it? I'd choke it to death, right? And the more I do this, the more then I allow and I open up. But when I'm doing this, I'm all clenched and everything's bouncing off of me. So I don't know if that really answered the question, because it's kind of nebulous, but it's really about surrender and letting go. And from a past control freak that still has those things kind of pop up, that's not always easy to do, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, Debbie, that's awesome. Thank you. You're an inspiration. I'm going to build on that. So Sarah, you're well aware of this, but there was I was made redundant from the company that Sarah and I had been together with for such a long time. I was there 20 years, and come January this year, my position was eliminated due to an organizational realignment. But I remember going back like the October before my departure, like how much I was trying to force change, how much I wanted to make my people whole from a compensation perspective, how much I wanted to drive certain initiatives that I truly believed was going to move the organization in the direction it needed to move, and how I was going to be able to really be a servant leader to my people. And I remember the day I actually said, look, like if we're not going to be able to make these things happen, you're going to have to find someone else to make them happen. And sure enough, like here I am, not with that company anymore. And I spent so much time and so much energy trying to force an agenda that I felt was the right way to go. And as soon as I lost that position, a lot of people came to me and like, Mike, you didn't realize that you were in it, but this is going to be the best thing that has ever happened to you. Like you were too far into it. You were so emotionally wrapped around what you were trying to do that this is going to be the best thing that's ever happened to you. And hand to God, it's been the best thing that's ever happened to me. Like my blood pressure is way down. I found a position where I'm equally compensated, a tenth of the risk, a tenth of the responsibility. And it really has afforded me this opportunity to really focus on being a better version of myself. And it's just one of those things that I could have never manifested for myself. Like I was too deep in trying to force something that once it was actually forced upon me, man, the outcome was just so much better. So sometimes you're right, Debbie, you just got to let go. And you got to just trust the universe is going to bring you to a place where things are going to work out. And for me, like, I'm living proof of that. Like, I couldn't be happier.
It's the Raiders of the Lost Ark again, right?
Mhm.
And
Right.
think
Taking that
about it,
leap.
because really our only job is to maintain a high vibration and maintain the law of assumption. Expect it to happen, right? And so many times I was just having this conversation yesterday with someone that we meet people that are vibrating here and we're vibrating here. And especially women, we tend to then lower our vibration to meet people to be harmonized. When in fact, we do them an injustice by doing that versus staying at this high vibration and allowing them the opportunity to rise to that vibration. So when I look at it, sometimes too, the surrender comes in me just focusing on, I need to maintain my high vibration and maintain the law of assumption, expecting that it's going to happen, right? So doing the inspired action that creates when the opportunity arises that I'm ready and available for it.
Yeah,
Love
I love that. It really is. I think as I've looked at different things that I'm manifesting, whenever I've run into the challenges, I just spend more time meditating. I spend more time in quiet. I spend more time in journaling, and really uncovering, like, okay, what is it that I'm still supposed to be learning? Or is there a different path that I'm supposed to be taking? And it really is difficult, I think, where a lot of people end up giving up is because of the impatience or the doubt. So it's like, oh, well, maybe this isn't for me. Or, so we start doubting ourselves, or, gosh, why is this taking so long? So we become impatient, and then, we try continuing to force down like a different path. So I found sometimes I've had something where it took like almost 10 years to manifest, for that. Like the right things just had to fall in place in order for that to happen. I had one situation where the person that was so resistant came to me and said what it is that I was wanting. They came to me and said, I think this needs to happen. And I was like, okay, like, like all of a sudden things came in alignment. But now this person who was so absolutely against it ended up suggesting it, what it is that I was wanting. And so it's interesting just to, sit back and go, okay, apparently there's still some more to learn, or, things like that. So I think, the impatience and the doubting is where a lot of times people fail. So I wanted to see what you guys think about that, as far as like when you have done something like the desired outcome. And I know, Mike, you said, it's there's not a timeline. Like sometimes it's going to take a while, but I do think that it's those lessons along the way. So I was curious, as when you have been impatient or doubting things along the way, how have you dealt with that?
Yeah. And there's one more thing that I'll throw in there that I have found gets in the way of my manifestation too, and it's comparison. I've read somewhere that comparison is the thief of joy, right? And it's the idea that if I have this journey, like for example, I talk about going to the gym and I see a guy who's like bigger than me, he's in the gym all the time, he's putting up more plates than me, and I look at like what he's doing, I'm like, how come I don't look like that? And I'm like, well, Mike, stop measuring yourself. Like he's on a different journey. His situation is never like similar to your situation. Comparison is the thief of joy, right? So when I start thinking about a manifestation, I very purposefully try and never compare myself to any other journey that someone else is on. I keep my goal, and I keep myopically focused on it. And for that reason, you will never find me on any social media. You'll find me on LinkedIn, and that's it. I never go ahead and look on anything else in social media. I'm not on it because, again, I believe like there's just a lot of negative influence there, and it's not getting you to the place where you need to be, because you're going to see someone who's better looking than you, taking better trips than you, eating better food than you. And if that's going to go ahead and like somewhat cloud the progress that you're making along this journey, it's not helping you, right? So I'm always very conscientious about never comparing myself and the things that I want to achieve to what others may be going through or what they're trying to achieve. I don't remember if that answered your question, but that certainly stuck out in my mind. I'm like, we got to talk about this, because I do believe it's like such an inhibitor of people manifesting the things that they want.
I love that you said that, because when you were saying earlier, when you were like looking at the guy, next to like, what are they doing? Like, where are they at? Are they in comparison? And so I love that you came back and said also, like, yes, you can see like where other people are at, and that can also motivate you and inspire you. And also don't, focus on where they're at in comparison to yourself. So I love that you came back and said that.
Yeah, adding to that a little bit, I think self-awareness is really key to manifesting. Knowing who you are, what you're available for, and what you're not available for. There's a great book called The Year of Yes, written by Shonda Rhimes, who, wrote Grey's Anatomy and all these things. So it's a great read. And it really embraces the law of sacrifice, meaning that if you know who you are, right? If you imagine yourself as a vase, when we pour out, we knock off the unending supply that's coming into our vase. And then what happens is we go into resentment. We say yes to things we didn't want to say yes to, all of those things. And if I hear one more time I'm pouring out into people, it just makes me want to vomit, right? Because you pour out, and then what happens is your vase goes low. Right? And your vibration starts to lower versus standing tall and allowing that energy to come into you, and people get your overflow. Right? Now we knock holes in our vase too, right? And have energy seep out with the imposter syndrome and the comparison and all of those things. But I found a really key important piece for me is to get in nature. Right? And observe nature, get out and do a hike, get a walk. REI says there's no bad weather, there's just bad clothing, right? So like getting out into nature is key, and it's very grounding. But there's a nature walk that one of my mentors, who I took over his class at Gonzaga, Dr. John Horsman in Canada, wrote, and I use this a lot with people and with myself, is when you do a nature walk, create a threshold where you're walking into a sacred walk, and then find a rock, any rock you want, hold it, notice it, and imagine putting all the things you need to let go of into that rock, right? And I go on a trail that I'm very familiar with, because sometimes I get into a meditative state and I'm like, where am I on the trail, right? But putting everything that you need to let go of in that rock, and then leaving that rock on the trail. You can throw it, put it down, whatever. Then finding a piece of a tree, right? It could be a pine cone, a whatever, some piece of wood, because the wood signifies the tree of life, right? Like things grow from that. And the universe abhors a vacuum. So whatever space we've just cleared, it's going to fill it with something. And we want to be mindful about what it's being filled with. So then pick up a piece of wood and imagine and ask, what is coming? Right? Like, what's here for me to fill that space with right now? And then when you feel like you've gotten all of that, leave the piece of wood somewhere on the trail. Imagine another threshold and step out of that sacred walk. And it is amazing what comes. It's almost like a guided meditation in nature. But what comes from that. And then typically I'll go and journal a little bit in my car before I leave, because there's all these things. And the key is at being patient too, right? You were talking about that earlier, because signs that I get from certain things may not make sense to me until a little bit later. And I'm like, oh, that's what that meant. Right. And I've had times I'll be walking and the rock just like falls out of my hand. So like, don't force it. This is a good example of letting something come versus forcing it, but using your power versus force. So that nature walk is really important to me as far as like a hack to stay in that dance between the grounded and the excited energy to keep that vibration up. Yeah.
I love that you also said self-awareness. To me, one of the other things that's important is to learn to trust your intuition. Absolutely. And to really understand the difference between that and fear and, all the other things that come with it, because it's that universe nudging us along the way that we need to be listening for. And I find that when you're not open, or when you don't have that higher vibration to really be open to those signs that are coming to you, then that's when you miss out on that opportunity. And so so for example, I saw, whenever I talked about at the beginning, me having to go in for a second time to get things, I was like, okay, like that's the universe saying, hey, there's something here. Like I'm having you go do this because there's something you need to be conscientious of. The next time, it's going to do it in like a different way. Like if you're still not listening, knock, knock, guess what? Now we're going to do something else, and that's whenever I've looked back on my life, it's when I've ignored the signs of, sometimes it's the higher vibration of getting you there. And sometimes it's like, okay, now you're going to have a harder lesson because you didn't pick up on those things along the way. So I think that in order for things to be further in flow, it's also seeing the things that we're supposed to pay attention to that we need to be taking care of as well.
Yeah. And Sarah, I think it's really important here for me. I've found I can't do it on my own, right? Like so many times we're in this independent country where we think we have to be so independent, but ultimately we were built for community. And so that self-awareness also comes with some humility because like I'm humble enough to say, I can't do it on my own. I have a group of women. We went to Paris together with our business coach and we've stayed together masterminding and we talk twice a month and meet up 2 or 3 times in the year. And I call on them a lot to say, hey, I'm in this space. Anytime I go to level up, right? Like I just reached out and said to my counselor, I need to see you for a few weeks because I know that imposter syndrome, all that stuff's going to come up for me because I'm leveling up. I'm doing differently in my business. I'm leveling up who I am as a person. And so I know I need that extra support around me, right? I need to borrow some belief sometimes from people. So I think it's really important to have kind of people in your life, that environment around you. Like, I know I love my dad, but he's a little bit of an energy vampire for me. So when I'm leveling up, I don't reach out to him as much, right? Doesn't mean I sever the relationship, but then I surround myself with other people that continue to lift me up until I don't love the phrase fake it till you make it because I think that's unauthentic, but be it until you become it. So as I'm trying to be that person, I need other people to help believe in me and support me in that journey. So I highly recommend to people to have a board of directors, right, that are different than you, that help you think about things differently and call on them for support. There's nothing wrong with saying, I can't do this on my own.
Yeah, I love that. Well, I want to end things with also giving some information back. We've provided so much to our audience, but I also want to focus on if you had to give insight or any type of final advice to our audience or anybody that's listening in talking about understanding how the universe has nudged you to take inspired action when manifesting, is there any final advice that you would give our audience in the things to sort of pay attention to?
Mike, go for it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to steal something straight from corporate America, but like I always feel like you should understand what your mission is as a person and what are the core beliefs that you do to support that mission. Like for me, I always, if someone were to ask me like, what's your mission in life, Mike? My mission is always leave the people in the places that I find better than I found them. And the way that I do that is I always look for the two greatest gifts that are out there, to help and to be helped, right? So if you live those beliefs and you put those beliefs out into the world and you share those with the people that you're surrounding yourself with, you will find a community that will help you manifest. I truly believe that. There's a gentleman that just recently came into my life. He's a pastor. His name's Tate. And the things that Tate is doing as a pastor in a local church, he's helping food drives when the government was shut down. He does these clothes drives. He and I just talked about well projects that we both did in Tanzania for a bunch of people who didn't have wells or running water in their villages. And like, I feel like that person found me, right? Because I put that energy out into the world. But you will find those types of people, those like-minded people, if you know what your mission is and you know what your core value is.
I love it.
Yeah, that's awesome. And, I would say everything comes from love or from fear. And if we can understand and see behaviors in other people as we're leading other people and understand it has nothing to do with us when they're triggered and understand there's some kind of fear underneath that, then we can approach them in love, right? Whenever ego tries to take over and go into fear. So for me, the biggest thing, whether it's manifestation, whatever it is, if you can understand, is this coming from love or is this coming from fear? If it's coming from fear, there's an untruth. And then all that is neuroscience, right? unwinding what the untruth is. If it's
Mm.
coming from love, to your point, Mike, that's when you're going out and you're doing acts of service and you're showing love to other people. And that love comes back to you in so many different ways.
Yeah. I love the ending from both of you. I want to add one other thing that I also think that can potentially help people is, as I look at individuals, we all have our own special talent, the thing that makes us unique. And a lot of times it's hard to embrace sometimes what that is, and really become our authentic self. And so I think it's finding what it is that is truly you, and where you just like it's natural for you. Like you were here to do something. What is that? You know, we all have a specific purpose. And I think this goes back to what Mike is saying, is understanding first that the core beliefs in what you have, understanding your purpose, but also embracing what that actual talent is, and understanding that it's different than someone else. You know, someone else might be, you know, the person that's meant to hug people and love people. There are also people that are here to provoke and to, you know, cause people to really think, you know, further. So everybody has their own unique talent. It's figuring out what that is for you, and then embracing it, and pushing away the self-doubt, and finding a way to really just believe in yourself, and moving forward with what it is that you have as your unique ability in life.
Owning your badass self.
Yes.
That's it.
I love it. Thank you guys so much. Man, we could go on, I know, easily 3 hours. And so I loved this conversation. I love deep conversations, and I hope everybody got a lot out of this, and really will take it and help manifest what they want in their life. I also want to just say that I really want to tell my audience I appreciate your interactiveness. I love the comments that you provide each time, and I really just love the community that we're continuing to grow. So I really want to continue to find more people like us and continue to build a community like this even further out. And so thank you so much for that. We are going to be off next week, so happy Thanksgiving, and hope everyone has an amazing Thanksgiving. And then on the month of December, we'll be wrapping up the year with our final universal law. It'll be the law of compensation. And so on December 5th, I will be covering what the law is. And then on December 12th, I'll have a panel joining me to discuss the law. And then I will be wrapping up the year on December 19th with a special co-host that will be ending the year. And as I've also said, I'm still figuring out what I'm going to do next year. So if you have ideas or things that you really love, or if you have individuals that you think, hey, Sarah, you really should check this person out, send them my way. I'm still continuing to figure out what it is I'm going to do next year, either as a theme or maybe changing some things up. So I'm still trying to figure that out as well. And so I want to also just a final thank you to Debbie and Mike for an amazing conversation today.
Thank you.
Yes. Everyone have a badass Friday, and we will see you next week.